Hi there, it's Leandra from PaperArtsy, and today I've got Lynn Brown here who's going to do a video demonstrating this technique here. So hi Lynn, how's it going?
Hi, yeah, really good, thanks.
So you're going to use your new stamps.
I am.
Well, you would if you continued on, but in the sample where we've got the new stamps, for this demo you're just going to show us the background, aren't you?
Yeah, I just want to show you a technique that I've done for many years, and it's one of those things that you kind of forget about, and I just wanted to revisit something that was going to be quick. So it's really simple to do. All you need is some paint, a substrate, and an old credit card, and away you go. Cool. So I'm going to start with Caribbean Sea, which is an opaque paint. It's from my limited edition set. I do prefer to start this technique with an opaque. It works much, much better with an opaque. Gives you great coverage. So all I'm going to do is just squish my credit card into the paint, and basically I'm just aiming to get some colour down on my substrate. So I'll rotate it round and just scoop it around just to get a little bit of coverage here, there and everywhere from every angle. So I'm not really worried that it's patchy. That kind of enhances the whole look. Just going to clean off my card before I go to my next colour. Okay. And I've chosen to use Snowflake for this. And the reason is that when I scrape this over the existing colour, it's actually going to mingle with the colour that's already there and create a lighter shade of the first colour that I put down. So I'm just going to pick a little bit up. I have picked up a little bit of the Caribbean Sea at the same time there. That wasn't intentional, but it doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to scoop that on, and I'm scraping, but I'm pressing quite firmly this time because I want to pick up some of the colour that's underneath. And you can see how it's just mingling. And because the snowflake is opaque as well, it gives you just great coverage. I just love this technique.
So you get some areas where it sort of looks dotty patchy, others where it's nice and streaky, and so you just instantly get kind of a whole, you can control it, can't you? You get better at figuring out.
Yeah, totally. I mean, how fast can that be?
Yeah.
So I am going to add another layer to this with a translucent colour, but I do need this to be dry, otherwise the translucent colour would get muddied in with everything that's already there. So I'm just going to reach my heat gun, give it a little bit of a zap. It doesn't take long to dry because the chalk content in the paint hurries along the drying process.
Now, do you sometimes find that you do that on the back as well, like if you're working on larger pieces of grey board so that they don't perhaps buckle?
Yeah, sometimes I do. This grey board that we're using is actually your product, and because of the paper coating on it, I don't find that happens quite so much. But if I was using just a grey board where there wasn't that paper coating, you're right, it does curl up a little bit. But if you just flip it over and heat it from the other side, it tends to even itself out a little bit. So now I'm going to grab a translucent colour, and I'm actually going to take Tango. I think turquoise and orange is just a beautiful colour combination. It's quite popular at the moment. If you kind of have a look around the shops and look at wallpapers and things and wrapping paper, you'll see that it's quite on trend. And I'm going to apply this with a baby wipe, and I'm just going to use a tiny amount of paint. So I'm actually rubbing it around just so that I get a little bit on my baby wipe, and I'm just going to come in here and just gently dab. I don't want a lot, I just want a hint, and it just makes it a little bit more interesting. It warms it up a touch, and it just adds another layer. So
I think you always get colours popping when you bring in that contrast. They always look lovely when there's two colours that work well together, but when you bring that totally contrasting colour, it just lifts it.
It does.
And you kind of get shades of green too, don't you? Because when the orange sits on top of the blue, you get that green tone coming through. So you kind of get an extra colour by accident.
Just a bonus. Yeah. It's just a bonus. So you can see over the top of the white areas, you can see that it is actually orange. And that's as much as I'm going to put on there.
Yeah.
I really don't feel that it needs anything else. So again, I'm just going to give that a little bit of a zap to dry it. And then I'm just going to grab this mesh stamp and stamp that with some of the snowflakes. So I'm going to use up some of the paint that I've got on my little craft sheet here.
So that mesh stamp is off ELB21, which is that stamp set here from with the bird cages on it.
Okay, so let's just pop this onto an acrylic block. So just load up your cut and dry foam with some of the snowflake. Now this is really quite important. If you're not used to using paint on stamps, you need to kind of smush out the excess paint. You don't need loads and loads, and just dab onto the high points of the stamp. Don't press right down into it because you get a whole blobby thing going on. It's not an attractive look. And this is going to be a really useful background stamp. It's going to work for everything. It's going to be great in journals. It's going to be great on canvases. If you're a card maker, it's going to be a really random background that works for any occasion. I just love it.
And I like when you stamp in white with a background stamp. It sort of lightens off the background.
It does.
It's a good look.
So I've kind of used nearly all of the image there, and I just like little pieces of it as well.
Yeah.
So we're just going to come in off the corner. Now I'm not really putting an awful lot more paint on my stamp. I just want a hint of something so that you get different depths of colour as well. And that's really all you need. You don't need anything else. So once you've got your images in there, it's not going to be the main thing that your eye is drawn to, but when you look at it closely, it's a really interesting background.
That's brilliant. Thanks for sharing that with us, Lynn. Can I just ask you to explain briefly how you continued to finish the sample with these stamped images? Did you stamp the birdcage on tissue? Or
what I did was, because these stamps are quite fine to paint in, and some of the colours that I wanted to use were opaque colours. That's not always easy to do without painting over the lines of the actual image, unless you have a really, really fine detail brush. So I quite like stamping the images onto tissue paper, and you can actually colour them from the back and then cut them out or just tear around them quite randomly. But when you glue them onto your background, the tissue paper melts into the background. You don't see that there's any tissue paper there at all. And also it's really a great aid for placement. And if you don't trust yourself to actually stamp the birdcage in the right place, if you're gluing it down, you know that you're going to get it in exactly the right place.
Brilliant. Okay, well that's great. Well, thanks for sharing that idea with us. It's nice to have you do a video
it's my pleasure. My pleasure. I hope you've inspired you to try this for yourselves.
Exactly. Thanks for joining PaperArtsy today, and we'll see you again back here on the PaperArtsy YouTube channel.